NBT Nation, welcome to another edition of NBT Talks. This is where I bring in training professionals to help us expand our understanding of how to use training as a strategic tool to move our businesses forwards and to help trainers themselves to get results, not yawns. Joining me today is a special guest star. Her name is Catherine. You might know her as Kid Unit 1. She trains animals, and as I've gotten to learn how she goes about training her animals, I realized it's a perfect crossover to training humans in a corporate training session. Catherine, thanks for joining me on NBT Nation, or joining NBT Nation here on NBT Talks. Thanks for coming in. Really looking forward to what you have to share with us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Tell me a little bit. What sort of animals do you train? How long you've been doing it? Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, for starts, I train horses for speed events. My horse, personally, I've been working with him for about 3-ish years, and I've been riding for about 5. And this horse, he's crazy, and we do all the speed events, and we're starting to work on cow events. And then I also train cattle to do shows, so like showing in a ring. So that's what I do. I've been doing that for 1 year. This is going on my second.
And I know you've already gotten awards. You're getting great times in all your speed events. You've been recognized. Your cattle has won awards both at county fair and other places as well, right?
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit. Training on it. How do you go about training animals on a daily basis? Unpack that for me a little bit.
Well, I use 3 points that I believe in religiously. I use consistency, correction, and reward release. For consistency, you have to teach something and stick to it. You can't come back the next day and teach it something different and expect the exact same results. You have to stick with what you taught them, and you have to use that every single day, else they won't retain that information. And then for correction, you have to correct them whenever they don't get it right, but you also don't have to be the big mean, oh, you got it wrong. You get to ask for them to almost come back and try it again. And tell them, hey, you did it wrong, but, well, let's do it again. And then for reward release, whenever they get it right, you release that pressure. So in a job setting, this could look like somebody finishing a project way ahead of schedule. Don't schedule another one until it's time for another one to give them a little bit of a reward. So maybe they'll finish it early again.
Now, when you say releasing the pressure, I assume you mean from the reins or from the lead that you're pulling the cow with, that sort of thing?
Yes, sir, around that about.
So consistency, correction, reward, release. And boy, there's a lot of really great stuff to unpack there. Consistency as it pertains to the repetition of training. Correction, in other words, giving feedback real time. This was great. This we need to correct. And then that reward release. If you reinforce positive behavior, you get better results. Is that, am I tracking with you?
Yes, sir, exactly.
Now, how does boring training affect animals? Obviously, here on the channel, no boring training. We know it doesn't work for humans. How does it affect animals?
Well, boring training can create bad habits. With my horse, he had a bad habit of whenever he got bored, he'd just rear up and flip over, which is not only dangerous to me, or the horse, or anybody in a 50-mile radius, per se.
Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. It really taught them that bad habit of this is how he gets out of it. So with boring training, once they make those bad habits, it's not always correctable. Rearing up and flipping over is correctable. Somebody going on and not listening to somebody ever again isn't as correctable.
So boring training leads to bad habits in animals. What else does it lead to?
It leads to them not listening, just flat out not listening. Whenever my horse does it, I have to take him in a circle at a lope because that's something he likes to do. So not only am I telling him, pay attention, I'm sorry I'm being boring, but listen to me. That's something that really helps you bring him back in by getting their attention with something they like.
Do you sometimes get their attention back by encouraging them to do something they don't necessarily like?
I can do it. It depends on what I'm doing. With my cow, I can tell her, okay, we're going to walk another lap whenever she's not listening. That's something she doesn't like to do, but that really gets her to push forward to it.
So maybe sometimes you get her to do something she doesn't want to do to maybe build her stamina or to achieve a desired outcome.
Yes, sir.
And then what other bad habits can come along?
Well, if they're bored and they're not listening and they're creating bad habits, you have to reteach it. So not only does it put more work on them, it puts more work on you. So don't be boring and teach them. Because once they get bored and they create those bad habits and they just don't listen, you have to go back and reteach them. Reteach, reteach, reteach. And it's never going to get better if you're boring.
So what a great lesson to apply to the corporate training space. Training is an investment. It is a cost to the organization. And if you're boring, you're costing more money because you're not only wasting everybody's time and building bad habits and people aren't listening, you got to go do it all over again anyway. So it's absolutely amazing how it applies directly to humans and animals the same way. So tell me a little bit, how can you apply what you've learned from training animals to training humans? Let's unpack that a little bit.
Well, first, have a well thought out plan of how to keep your audience on their toes. Keep them on their toes. Have that well thought out plan. Maybe make an outline on a Google Doc and share it to everybody so they can see what they're doing. And then when they get in the training room, do exactly what you have planned so they expect it and get that not boring training.
Outstanding. So have it planned out ahead of time and maybe even kind of sell it, convince people that, hey, this is going to be cool. Awesome. What else?
Don't be bored in the first place. That is the most simplest thing that you can boil it down to, is just don't be boring.
Excellent. What other lessons can you apply to training humans?
This ties back into something I've also already said about the asking for that attention back. That really is going to help you in that training corporate office building thing. It's really going to help you because whenever you ask for that attention back by doing something either they do or don't like to do, that's really going to help them snap it back in there and help it settle down as, oh, I need to pay attention. This isn't as boring as I think. We're doing something fun right now, so let me listen.
So literally drawing the attention of your audience, in your case your animals, back to you by overtly out loud calling their attention back to you?
You can do that without saying, hey, pay attention. Do it by doing something they like to do or they don't like to do. So if they're doing great, they're just not listening, have them lope the circle metaphorically. If they're doing bad and they're not listening, then assign another project.
Do you have any other techniques for drawing that attention back that's maybe not so obvious?
Well, for instance, with my cow, I reach back there and I start scratching her tail. That is the most unobvious thing, and people would walk up and be like, what are you doing behind that cow? She's gonna kick you. Well, actually, she loves it, and that's the only thing you can do to get her attention whenever she's really not listening is scratch that tail, because then she's focused on what you're doing because she loves it.
Now, in a corporate environment, be a little careful with walking up behind somebody and scratching them, but that idea of really learning your audience and learning what makes them tick, and then as the instructor, you own that space. When you're conducting a training session, you are drawing people back to you if they're drifting off, and you got to earn their attention. Ask for their attention. So I really love that point. Catherine, thanks for joining me on NBT Nation today. Really great lessons learned from your training of animals. Any last minute final tips for NBT Nation?
Don't be afraid to be elementary and go back to those basics.
NBT Nation, thanks for joining me here. If you found this useful, please like, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so we can keep making great content like this. For more tools, resources, free stuff, for guides, free videos, a course on how to have effective, interesting training, all things No Boring Training, you can visit noboringtraining.com. Thanks for joining me, everybody.